Good evening and welcome to the January 28th, 2025 meeting of the Bexar County Board of Education. It's good to see you all here. It's 6 p.m. and the meeting is now called to order. We'll go ahead and begin with our superintendent's report.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Board members, as you know, it's been an interesting start to the semester with schedule changes regarding to weather. So I just wanted to say how much I appreciate our staff for making the adjustments and taking care of our kids. It's been a little bit bumpy with all the interruptions, but everybody has handled that with extreme grace. And particularly want to thank our transportation department for making some adjustments on Tuesday when we dismissed from school and making sure our kids got home safe. Also, as a part of that, throughout our closure, I want to share our thanks to the Sheriff's Office, the county government and their staff, and all the city governments and their staff who remained in communication with us throughout and made sure they were telling us where the trouble spots were and when they were going to be treated and all those things, so we could make plans to come back as early as possible and make sure we were providing our kids what they need. So just really appreciate our community coming together and working through that challenge. I also like to thank White Oak Missionary Baptist Church, who invited us to participate in their MLK Day celebration. That was a wonderful community event that I was able to attend along with some board members and be a part of that program throughout the community. So really appreciate those guys for having us. Finally, I'd like to thank our high school staffs in particular. You'll hear more about this evening, but you know that we implemented weapons detection systems and completed that implementation at all of our high schools last week, and that has gone extremely well, and staff has implemented that very efficiently. I'm very proud of the work that they've done and the fact that they are using that as an opportunity to really welcome kids to campus each morning, greet them, and try to build a positive relationship with them. So I'm excited about the work that we continue to do here in Bexar County, and that concludes my report, unless there's any questions.
All right, thank you, Dr. LaDuff. We'll move on to our presentations and discussions and begin with support services. Dr. Bowen.
Good evening. I have one informational item to carry on with Dr. LaDuff's comments about the scanning. I'm happy to report to you that we currently have 20 open gate weapons detection devices at our 3 high schools, and the scanning is going very well. Our school leaders and their staffs have been amazing at stepping up to meet the new challenges. Our schools are already able to scan all their students and all their bags in under 30 minutes to start the school day. Each device requires about 3 people to operate and manage, so we have approximately 20 staff members, more or less, at each school, actively working each morning to get our students and their bags scanned. Big thanks to Ms. Rayberg, Ms. Litchlider, Mr. Threlkill, and their teams for all their hard work. To thank a few other people, if I could, Chief John Skinner, his efforts to implement our scanning program. He's been working on this for a while to add the scanning layer to our safety plan. The relationships and the research already in place allowed us to move quickly on January 9th to acquire and implement the system. Thank you also to Kevin Wren of the Cook and Boardman Group and Patrick Leeson of A3 Communications for their quick response in shipping and training on the devices. We contacted Kevin and Pat in late September, so they had already conducted site assessments of our campuses, made recommendations for our system needs, provided references, also prepared quotes for the purchase of our device. They had prepared all this work for us over the last few months to have us ready to go. Finally, I especially want to thank our high school students for their compliance, their cooperation, and their patience as they adjust to a new normal in their daily school routines. Any questions, board members?
Dr. Bowen, can you just share with the board why we are utilizing or need to utilize staff to operate those devices as opposed to law enforcement?
Yes, well, and some of it is purely numbers, as we need about 20 people at each site to man all of the 6 or 7 devices, and we only have 1 or 2 SROs in place. So even if we had an SRO in every building, or even 2 in every building, we just wouldn't have enough people to do that. It's one big reason. The second reason is if there is an alert and a need to potentially do a search of a student or a bag, We need to do that as a school employee or staff member versus law enforcement. We just have a different level of reasonable suspicion versus probable cause in searching a student. So we have more latitude. We've been given that by the courts, more latitude in schools to search versus law enforcement needs a higher level there to search. So it's those two primary reasons.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Bowen.
Thank y'all.
All right, moving on to business services, Ms. Houston.
Thank you. This is just an item of information, nothing to vote on at this time. We will need to sell some bonds in March to help fund our capital improvement plan and manage growth and maintenance at our facilities. We just wanted to start the conversation. Tom Owens is our bond financial advisor, and he will be with us on February 7th. He will help walk us through this process. So at this point, do you have any initial questions? If not, we'll see y'all on the 7th, and we'll talk more about this process. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Houston. Moving on to the system operations, Mr. Perno.
Good evening. We have 3 information items tonight in system operations. Our first item is the small classroom pod at Appalachia High School. This was needed to provide immediate classroom space at Appalachia High School in the aftermath of September 4. The pod was intended to be a temporary measure until just after the first of the calendar year when larger pods would arrive on campus. Those larger pods are in place and operational, and so we can have the smaller pod removed, and the cost for that removal was included in the original lease agreement. Any questions on that item? Okay. Our second item is an update of our Performing Arts Center, and you got some photos there. Moving along very well with the with this project, and you can see there we've got the tennis courts ready for the kids there. Still working on getting the lights burning out there, but we hope to have that ready for their first home match. And so we're on schedule there and moving along very well. Okay. Our final item tonight, this is an update on our classroom pods. And I'd like to take just a moment to thank those who worked so hard on these. Charles Black Construction, Modular Solutions, all the subcontractors and suppliers, our Barrow County School System IT, business services and maintenance folks, our county government, fire marshal, and permit and planning office. Everybody understood the magnitude and the urgency of the project, and they just responded beautifully, and we appreciate each and every one of them. There's some photos there of the classroom pods. Again, both of these large pods are in place at Appalachia High School, and they're operational now. The pod for Winnebago High School, we expect to be grading on that next month. So we'll see activity out there throughout the rest of the spring semester and have that ready to go for next school year. Any questions on those? All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Perno. And now for teaching and learning, Dr. Bowden.
Thank you and good evening. There are 3 informational items for teaching and learning and 1 action item, and at this time I would like to welcome Mrs. Jenny Persinger to the podium. She will share CCRPI results for 2024. Welcome, Mrs. Persinger.
Good evening. So I don't usually present under the teaching and learning report, but part of my presentation will lead into their report, so it just made sense for you to hear this as we lead in. So I know our previous boards have heard CCRPI information, but because we have had such turnover recently, I will probably be a little more detailed than I normally would. So CCRPI stands for College and Career Readiness Performance Index, and it is the state's tool for measuring performance of schools and districts. It meets federal requirements that fall under Every Student Succeeds Act, known as what we call ESSA. And then also meets state law that's quoted there. Basically, it has 5 components. We look at content mastery, progress, closing gaps, readiness, and graduation rate, which of course applies at our high school level. And then each of those components are scored on a scale of 0 to 100. Content mastery is that first area. Some things to think about with content mastery is the main source of data for these are our Georgia milestones. So that is the assessment that is given in 3rd through 8th grade in English Language Arts and Math, and then in 5th grade particularly they take science, and in 8th grade they take science and social studies, and then there are 4 high school courses that take an end of course assessment. So it's not every student contributing to this score, it is just those tested subjects that these scores come from. And then there are a few students in those grades that don't take Georgia milestones. They take an alternate assessment based on their special ed needs. ESSA also requires that 95% of all students are tested, and if not, they adjust our score down a little bit if we have less than that participation rate in those assessments. So the next screen will show you our content mastery score. It is done by grade level, by grade band. So those elementary include 3rd through 5th grade, and then all of middle school, and then 4 courses in high school. I will tell you that this is our 3rd year of scores past the pandemic, and both our district and the state have continued to see increases. We're kind of getting closer to that state number. We just haven't quite made it yet, but I just wanted you to know that we are seeing increases over all 3 of those years since the pandemic. All right, the next area in CCRPI is progress, and that measures how much students grow from one school year to the next. It only includes English Language Arts and mathematics of those tested subjects. And if you think about it, those science tests are so far apart, or the social studies tests are so far apart, they can't really show progress if they don't take it from 5th grade to 8th grade to then high school. So they're looking at what the state calls a student growth percentile, and they're comparing similar students and how they progress. So the next slide was, one part I left off is we also test our English learners in Access, is an assessment we give those to see how far they're progressing in their English proficiency. And so that is for all grade levels, and it's showing their progress on those. So thank you, Rochelle. The next slide shows our progress. Again, we are proud of our progress scores that show our student academic growth, and that's how we're getting closer to those state numbers, is because we are showing that progress there. And one thing to notice, while we have seen increases from 23 to 24, even after the pandemic, there was a year that an additional year that there were no scores, because we had to have 2 years in a row of scores to make those comparisons of progress. So from last year to this year, we have shown progress in those areas as well. Okay, the next area is closing gaps. This one is looking at all students and at student groups. So it is each demographic group that has 15 or more students in it. And it's starting with a baseline, a 3% target increase. So that target keeps trying to get us closer to that 90% baseline where they want all areas to be. This one is a little tricky because you earn points, it's either basically a yes or a no. You didn't make progress, you made a little bit of progress, you hit that target, so you can earn points that way. So it's very cut and dry. So some schools get absolutely 0 points, some schools can get that over 100, but it's scored on 0 to 100. So this one can be a little deceiving, especially because you're looking at different cohorts as they go through. So one year a cohort might have that 15 minimum number of students, and the next year it won't. This one is a really hard one to kind of target from year to year, how we're going to do. That next slide shows how we compare to the state. Again, remember that that 100 could actually represent a number over 100. The state just caps it off at 100. Again, we have shown progress in elementary and middle from last year to this year. High school did go down a little bit this year, but there were also in all areas, in all grade bands, no math scores counted this year in this because we had new math standards and it took longer to grade that test and it's not comparable to last year. And our high schools typically earn points here in algebra and those points just weren't there to earn for us. So that, I think, has a little bit to do with why that number went down for high school this year. And then the last area, except for graduation rate, that only applies to high school. So that last overall area is readiness. This area is measuring how our students are getting prepared for their next level, whether it's moving from elementary to middle, middle to high school to beyond. So the at or above grade level reading is measured strictly on the milestones test. And it's a yes or no, what percentage of students are reading at or above grade level. The student attendance area is the percentage of students that are absent less than 10% of their enrolled days. So if they're only enrolled for a month, they have to have been present for at least 90% of that. If they're enrolled for the whole school year, we're looking for them to be present at least 90% of the school year. Beyond the core are classes literally that don't fall into that English language arts, math, science and social studies. So it includes fine arts, world language, career exploratory classes, computer science classes, and then in middle school, we can also count health and PE in that. So they need a passing score in one of those courses. At high school, it also includes students that take dual enrollment classes, advanced placement classes for that accelerated enrollment. Pathway completion is literally, did they complete a pathway in high school? And then college and career readiness includes entering a technical college of our university system or a university system college without needing remedial courses, a certain score on the ACT or SAT, taking an end of pathway assessment, participating in work-based learning, scoring a certain score on the ASVAB, which is the military assessment. So it's looking at students that have hit some of those marks. So then that next slide shows you our scores as well as the state scores. Again, in these areas, we continue to improve both in the district and the state level. And then last is graduation rate. And Beth Mitchum, who's our data and assessment coordinator, presented earlier to the board on graduation rate. But just for those of you that were not here for that meeting, graduation rate looks at the students who were enrolled at one of our high schools at any point and didn't leave to go somewhere else. So if they withdrew from us and went to a neighboring county, then they're included in that graduation rate. If they did not go somewhere else, it's looking at did they finish in 4 years or then again in 5 years. So they combine both of those 4-year and 5-year rates to have an overall graduation rate. So on the next slide, you can see how we compare in all those areas. We're very happy to say that we tend to always be above the state in our graduation rate, and we have continued to improve. Our high schools work really hard. A lot of this is tracking down where did those students go. Not just are they meeting graduation requirements, but if they're not here, are they somewhere where they're getting those opportunities? And then so that wraps up all of CCRPI calculations, but there are some other implications for those scores. So there are some, what our state calls a federal school identification. So basically the way our Department of Education explains it is that there are some federal funds to help in areas where they are needed, and each state has their own method for identifying where those funds should go, how those funds should be used. So in the state of Georgia, they have 3 of these federal lists. They have a comprehensive school support and improvement list, a targeted support and improvement list, and then an additional targeted support and improvement list. Now, of course, there are tons of calculations behind how all this is done, and this is the stuff I geek out on, but I'm not going to make you sit up here and do some math. But if, Rochelle, if you'll go to the next one, the comprehensive support and improvement list identifies the lowest performing 5% of all Title I schools, or any high school with a graduation rate of less than 67%, or schools that are identified in ATSI, one of those other lists that we'll talk about, in the same group for 6 years. These schools are identified every 3 years. So the most recent list was announced in January of '24 using the 2023 CCRPI data, and Bexar County Schools currently has no schools that are identified on this list. The next list is Targeted Support and Improvement List, and it identifies a school with one or more consistently underperforming student groups. So think back to those student demographic groups that we were looking at earlier. And this list is identified annually, and it's a staged approach. So it starts with looking at that content mastery, which we might recall was based on those milestone scores. It's looking at the bottom 20% of those schools. And then it goes to the next stage where it looks at progress and closing gaps. Then it moves to the next step where it looks at readiness and narrows down this list. So based on 2024 data, we did have one elementary school identified on this list specifically for their students with disabilities group. This list, like it said, it comes out annually. So if that group does not meet these criteria next year, then they won't be on that list. It's not like some specific goal that they have to reach. They just don't meet the criteria next year, and they won't be identified. And then the last group is additional targeted support and improvement groups. So they're looking specifically at those TSI schools and looking to see if any student group on its own would have been in that bottom 5% if they were calculated as a whole school CCRPI score. These are identified every 3 years. So based on our 2023 data, we did have one school identified in this group that was announced in January a year ago, specifically for their students with disabilities. Now, they will be able to come out. They don't have to wait the whole 3 years to come off this list. When they don't meet the criteria and that group shows improvement, then they can be removed from that list. But remember, these are all identified so that the state can offer us some additional support with those federal funds. And then one last thing I just wanted to mention, just because some of you may have heard some news about it, is there's also this Georgia Promise Scholarship. So last year, Senate Bill 233, I think it is, was passed that sets aside some funds for families to use to attend a private school, possibly if their school falls in the bottom 25% of state performing schools. There was a list that was announced at the end of November, but then it was quickly pulled down. And I think there's some questions and they're recalculating. So we're still awaiting. The website right now just says coming soon. So we're not sure yet if we qualify for that list and what that will look like for us. But we are just anticipating waiting on that list to come out. So is there any questions I can answer before I turn it back over to Dr. Moten? Awesome, thanks.
Thank you, Mrs. Persinger. Thank you for your collaboration across departments and certainly supporting teaching and learning. So following that, we'll go into some detail regarding the interventions and support that is being offered to our schools that have been identified on those lists that have been published. So on the first slide here, and some of this is going to be repetitious, based on what Mrs. Persinger has already said, but on the next slide there, you can see the 3 categories by which schools are identified: the CSI, the TSI, and the ATSI. The next slide goes into additional detail that Mrs. Persinger just shared with you regarding how schools are designated under ESSA for those lists. And again, the subgroups, and it may be by students with disabilities, it may be English language learners, it may be by ethnicity, but they do look at different subgroups with this designation. That is the staged approach, or that is a graphic that identifies that staged approach by which schools are reviewed, being in that Title I designation, and then looking across those component areas. On the next slide, DOE has identified 3 goals for supporting schools with ATSI: improving academic performance, addressing any systemic barriers, and then building sustainable capacity for those schools. In Barrow, we do have a team of leaders across the district that are supporting the schools. We're also collaborating with Georgia Department of Education, and then we also have some support from our Northeast Georgia RESA. Part of what we've done with ATSI, Auburn Elementary was identified on the list for ATSI, and our team has worked collaboratively with the groups identified on the previous slide. We have developed 2 goals, and you can see there that is 1 page of the support plan that has been put together, and then there are the 2 goals that are listed there to support students with disabilities in the area of English language arts. So we are working diligently to help students improve their academic performance in that content area. Some of the key interventions, you can see that there are 8 interventions that are identified there that are included in the plan. And I'm also happy to have Mrs. Amy Wadley and Dr. Salithia James with me. Mrs. Wadley is our Director of Special Education, and Dr. James is our Director of Elementary Education. They are part of the team that I alluded to just a moment ago. And so they will be able to go into detail about their work in supporting the students that have been identified for that subgroup in need of support at Auburn Elementary under ATSI. At this time, I welcome Mrs. Wadley to the podium.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. So, as Dr. Moten mentioned, the ATSI process is all about how we support our school and our teachers who are supporting our students with disabilities. And so the 3 primary action steps, and we'll go to the next slide. There we go. Thank you, Rochelle. The 3 action steps to meet our goal, those are outlined right there for you. So first thing is we're doing monthly walkthroughs, essentially. We have a team of 6 people that do monthly walkthroughs where we're looking for SDI, which is specially designed instruction. Specially designed instruction means what is a special education teacher doing in the classroom to meet the individualized needs of every student in there who has an individualized education plan. It's a big job to do, and it takes a lot of preparation work, so that is what we are working with them on. Also, I want to note that the DOE comes in for 2 of those, and they do walkthroughs as well. Then we are also facilitating quarterly IEP, or Individualized Education Plan reviews, where we're monitoring those for the development of quality, just ensuring that it's meeting every mark that it needs to meet for each of our students. And then what we're also doing is monitoring collaborative planning between general education teachers and special education teachers, because you have to plan in order to make sure that what you're doing in the classroom can be properly executed. And so just working with the team to ensure that they have the time they need to plan and provide effective instruction for students with disabilities in the classroom. And I also want you to know that every single one of these goals, it's monitored against the standard of the DOE. So they have rubrics for SDI, quality IEPs, and collaborative planning. So that's what we use to measure their progress. So how is the district team monitoring impact on student outcomes? First, it's through Beacon testlets. So with this, what we're looking for is the reduction of students with disabilities in the needs support category by doing this on a monthly basis, and we want to see a 15% decrease on the needs support area. And then also we're doing this through IEP reviews. I mentioned that before, but what we're also looking at is IEP goal progress, and we want to see that 100% of our students with disabilities are making progress on their annual goals that are related to math and ELA, or reading. And then also, we're looking at this through MAP assessments. So we want to see 85% of students with disabilities that their conditional growth percentile is going to be 55 or higher on the winter and spring administration of the MAP assessment. So moving on to evidence-based practices. It takes a lot of professional learning, and this is how we're working to help continue to support our teachers and build their capacity with everything that they're doing for our students with disabilities in the classroom. So that started with a training called Unpacking the Psychological. We did that over the summer with Dr. Allison Neely from UGA. She came and worked with our teachers at length on how do you really digest and break down a psychological report. That's what our school psychologists provide. And that helps us to inform a high-quality IEP. That's one piece of it, but it's very important to understand the psychological report. The other part of this is we're back to specially designed instruction, because that's exactly what's happening in the classroom. And how do we support teachers with that? So it happens through quality lesson planning, knowledge of assisted technology, co-teaching best practices. That's when you have a special education and a general education teacher in the classroom together. Flexible grouping, how do you do that in a sensible way to achieve getting them in the right group to focus on the skill that those particular students need, and that it's ever changing depending on what that skill is that you are working with them on. And then also differentiation of instruction and clear learning targets and success criteria. Just getting everyone in the habit of continuously communicating that to our students so they know exactly what they're working for in the classroom. And then finally, Sunday reading program. That is a direct and explicit instructional program for students who are struggling readers. It's a multisensory approach. It's based in Orton-Gillingham, which is a gold standard for helping struggling readers learn to read. So all students, all teachers, special education teachers at Auburn have received a kit, they've received the training, and they are working with our students on that if they've got reading goals. And then this slide, what are we doing moving ahead? So we're gonna have a really huge focus on co-teaching and ensuring that we're supporting not only special education teachers, but the general education teachers. And RISA has a really great program, so they'll be helping us to implement this. And then data collection and progress monitoring, we just wanna ensure that our teachers know the best ways to collect data, how to read it, understand it, and help inform future decisions on writing IEPs and service delivery. And then comprehensive behavior change, that is a phenomenal company of board-certified behavior analysts who we already contract with for our students who are served in classes that are specifically for those on the spectrum. This will be for our students in the self-contained behavior support. So we're gonna have them work with them as well to ensure that we're beefing up and giving everything that we can to them to provide supports in those classrooms. And then specially designed instruction and the Sunday reading program, that will be continuous and ongoing.
And we'll move on to TSI. And again, these are schools that have been identified as having one or more underperforming subgroup. The next slide shows the phased-in approach and how the schools are identified and the stages of those components. At this time, I would like to welcome Dr. Salithia James, our Director of Elementary Education, to share information about TSI. I'll also preface that with saying we received information as recently as Friday, January 17th. Several team members were on a webinar with DOE, and so this information regarding Winder Elementary is fairly new, but we have been proactive and started developing a plan and identifying some strategies and support already. So Dr. James will talk us through that.
Good evening. Prior to leaving for the holiday break, we, members across various departments, collaborated with all schools to celebrate successes thus far, review school and individual school data, and identify areas of next steps through our progress checks. We are currently in the process of completing progress check debriefs. And the goal of the progress check debriefs is to discuss the current work, look at next steps and professional learning needs with school leadership teams in an effort to target areas of growth based on the most recent data. This process also allows us to take the time to individualize support for each school and partner with schools on what their targeted support looks like. By doing this, we've been able to collaborate with schools by drafting a short-term action plan to assist them with meeting or even exceeding their school improvement goals. And the short-term action plan is the plan as described to help us focus on how we will improve school improvement goals through detailed but interim action steps. It also describes how and when the steps will be implemented. And with the most recent identification of TSI notification with Winder, we wanted to make sure that we were able to quickly begin an intense level of support with school leaders, so we actually scheduled their debrief first. With Winder Elementary School, they had a very, very detailed plan when we met with them members from the school improvement team. And with that debrief, they began a process called the outcome-based driven instruction framework. And this framework allows them to view student work and student data from a different lens. Each one of their sessions will include reviewing student data, looking at student exemplars, and determining next steps to best support, while also including administrators, the instructional coach, and all of those support staff members. Some of their work includes using some of these guided questions. What do we want all students to know and be able to do? How will we know if they learn it? How will we respond when students do not learn it? And how will we extend the learning for students who are already proficient? Some of the district level next steps plans based on both the progress check debriefs as well as the collaborative short-term action plans with Winder Elementary. We have developed a plan of support to support them from the district level. We plan to join some of those conversations that focus on data analysis. Through their data team cycles, we're working with school teams to analyze data, ask some of those probing questions when viewing the data, determine if we're noticing some common trends or even some historical trends when looking at the student data. And we are also working collaboratively with school leaders to determine what district professional learning is needed so that we can best support teachers as they best support students.
Thank you. And just to summarize this portion of our presentation, based on the calculations and the process that Mrs. Persinger explained, looking at the bottom 20 or the bottom 10 or the bottom 5% of students in those subgroups across the state, someone is always going to be on one of those lists mathematically. We do not take our work lightly with our students with disability in Barrow County, and we are excited to be able to work with two phenomenal leaders of these two schools. They are excellent leaders. They have embraced this work and what lies ahead for them and their students and their families wholeheartedly, so we're excited about that. So we want to keep our focus on support for the teachers, support for the leaders, support for the families. So we appreciate the fact that anything that we need, we know that we can come to this Board of Education to receive any resources and support that we need for these students and to help us move forward with progress and achievement. So thank you. With that, I'll open it up to any questions that you may have for us.
I don't have a question, Dr. Moten, just a comment. I really appreciate the in-depth, the phases that you have. I see that you've listed goals, and I can see the amount of work you've put into that and the checkpoints or debriefing. I just look forward to see all that data collection that you have on a report in the future. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay. And then I have one action item.
Real quick, Dr. Moten, I just
I'm
wanted
sorry.
to, will you remind me when the milestone data comes out annually? I know the students take it at the end of the year, but will you remind me on when that data is usually like released?
From my periphery, I can see Mrs. Persinger is so eager to answer that question. So I will allow her to do that before she just comes out of the chair.
So the schools get some data within a couple of weeks before the students leave. That data is embargoed and we cannot share it until, and we don't know the state data to have some comparisons until later in the summer. It's usually end of June, early July.
Okay, so just to follow up again, just transparency that we really won't know what any implementations with the State Department of Education or any of these plans will have until August or September.
Well, and then these lists weren't even announced until January, like Dr. Moten said, somebody's always everybody can be excelling, and somebody's always in that bottom 25 or 20%. And they don't even tell us that until January, so it's basically 6 months after the school year.
And one more question. I know there was another school on that list. Will we have an update on that information or kind of the process for that school as well?
We will definitely do that, yes.
Thank you.
You can relax now, Ms.
Thank you.
Just a clarification, I think Ms. Hendricks is referring to that promised school list that was taken down, so
Yes.
we'll get more information about that.
Yes.
When they put it back up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I have one action item. The Board of Education approved the budget line item of $130,000 for school year 2025. This is regarding our Foothills program students. However, due to the incident at Appalachian High School, our needs have increased. The current bill from Foothills for the first semester totals $192,157.34. Using this invoice to determine our need for the remainder of the school year, the total due to Foothills by the end of the year, we approximate will be $384,000. There are 2 attachments there for your review that outlines the number of students and the cost of that. The current total impact at this point is $192,157.34, which will be paid from the general fund. So we are making a request that this amount be paid to support those students who needed an alternate learning opportunity following the incident at Appalachian High School.
I do have a question, and this might actually be for Dr. LaDuff. Will any of the state emergency or crisis funds be eligible to reimburse for the remote learners?
So we were eligible for a number of different funds, potentially.
Potentially,
But
okay.
we use them in a number of different ways, and there's a limit to that.
Perfect, thank you. Thank you.
Dr. Moten, do we know how many, I know we're saying 192,000 for the first semester. That's correct, right?
Yes.
That's our invoice for the first semester. So how many of those students have returned back to our high schools? Or are we expecting that same number of students for the second semester?
We have approximately 15 students who have returned in person.
Okay.
But as I said, in a previous meeting, my email inbox is full all day long trying to support the families, but
Right.
approximately 15, and we have a little over 200 students who have taken advantage of this option. But every single day, just about, I'm getting some communication with parents who are trying to make that decision to help their students transition back. And many of those phone calls do indicate that this is temporarily, and they're
Yes, ma'am.
appreciative of your efforts to support them and their students through this, and that they do ultimately plan to return in person.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Moten. Move to consent agenda.
Yeah.
All right. Dr. Kurtz, Human Resources.
Good evening. The Human Resources Department has one information item for the board this evening and one action item. As a point of information, I do want to inform the board and the public that we have earlier this month posted a position for a full-time recovery coordinator. This was in consultation with the school administration, as well as a number of districts that have gone through similar crisis, national crisis support folks, and a number of regional mental health professionals. The position is designed to support our school through the recovery efforts for the next several years. We expect this to be funded through an Anti-Terrorism and Emergency Assistance Program, AEAP grant. It's a federal grant that'll flow through the state and down to us for up to 3 years. They'll coordinate the efforts around mental health professionals, those working with students, those working with staff, but also coordinate efforts in terms of community input. There are a lot of decisions to be made as we go forward, and we need to make sure that we're making the right decisions and everybody's voices are included in those. They'll work directly for Ms. Rayberg there, the principal of the school, with support from PDC staff. Any questions about the recovery coordinator position? We have a number of good candidates already and peeking ahead, so we're excited about that, getting some support there for the team there at Appalachia. Additionally, for an action item, we have been working very closely with some of those same folks, including the administration there at the school, on an employee assistance program contract with the Northeast Georgia Medical Center. Traditional employee assistance program contract provides some assistance that is sort of time limited, 5 sessions, 4 sessions, things like that. So we negotiated a somewhat different contract with them for a full-time clinician just to support our staff at Appalachia High School. Right now, they'll work the 190 days that teachers work. Again, this will be funded for the next 3 years through that same Anti-Terrorism Emergency Assistance Program grant. We have a maximum cost for the 190-day staff to include salary and benefits. And we'll be paying actual cost on this, and they'll have some in-kind donations of supervision, support, training. A maximum cost of $120,000 per year with an option if we can show a need where we can purchase additional time. In other words, if we can develop pieces where there's summer support that's needed or different days over Christmas, there's just some hard times, we just need to show that we will be able to continue the contract on through those days and also request reimbursement through the AEAP grant for those days. We're excited to work with the Northeast Georgia Medical Center on this. Their team has been very helpful throughout this, and they have a great deal of expertise in employee assistance programming. So we would ask the board place on the consent agenda the approval of an employee assistance program contract with the Northeast Georgia Medical Center for a maximum cost of $120,000 for approval at the February 4th regular board meeting. Any questions about the employee assistance program contract?
All right, thank you. Everyone good to move this to consent?
Yes.
All right, Dr. Thompson, Strategic Information Services.
Good evening. I have for you this evening 4 items of information and 1 action item under Strategic Information Systems. The first one is just the December communication report. I'm not going to ask Ms. Vallis to get up and walk through this. I'll just say it's there for your review, and if you are missing the Christmas holiday season, there's a lot of topical things in there that will take you right back there. So I hope you will enjoy perusing there, and you'll also see several items related to our safety enhancement survey, which we're going to talk about in just a second. So that is there for the board's review. So the second item of information I want to discuss tonight is our strategic plan update. So we come to the board biannually to give you an update on our strategic plan. And one of the things we're going to do tonight, as I usually do, is kind of walk you through how we categorize progress made towards the strategic plan, but we're also going to talk a little bit about the writing of the next strategic plan, because we are in year 4 of a 5-year plan, which means in the last year of your plan, in addition to finalizing anything that's left to be implemented, you want to start writing your next strategic plan, your next 5-year, 6-year plan of where Barrow County Schools is going to go into the future. So we're going to talk about that at the end. But we last gave you an update on this in June, so in January, I'm here to give you an update. So as a reminder, Rochelle, if you'll just go to page 2, the way we go through this, as a reminder, this plan was written in the spring of 2021. It was involved members of the Board of Education, central office staff, teachers, parents, students, community members. We had business owners. It was a huge process, and those of you who went through it will remember it happened during COVID. So we were all in the CFIT gym, all spaced 6 feet apart with about 70 people trying to write a strategic plan. In this case, that plan wrote 4 overall strategic objective areas, and it also came up with proximal goals within those and action steps to achieve those goals throughout the plan. So what we do at each of these updates is we try to tell you where we are at with each of those action steps towards the strategic goals. So each of these goals has a little key at the bottom that'll show you where those are at. So if the particular item is still in the research phase, because sometimes we can't just immediately roll out an initiative, we have to spend some time investing in researching and making sure we are prepared to properly implement that action step. We always want to make sure before we take any action that we are prepared to implement that successfully. That will be denoted by a kind of blue dot. The yellow is implementing. That means certain aspects of that action step have been implemented and rolled out, but they may not be fully complete. There may be some components still being rolled out as we go. And then if they are completed in that particular school year, so if they were completed, say, in this school year, 2024, 2025, they're denoted with a green check. That means they were fully implemented in this year. Once we implement something into our general culture of operations, we want to maintain that. In subsequent years, after it's been completed, we would call that ongoing. That basically means we have implemented this, now we're maintaining it going forward, and we're refining it and making sure it's still effective. So those are, and then we have a fifth, which is it is canceled, and that does happen. Sometimes in a strategic plan, you're trying to project 5 years into the future, your needs change, the challenges change, some things that you research don't end up being viable, so you need some way to pivot from that. So in those cases, those can be canceled. And when we cancel an item, we do try to explain that to the board, the reason behind that when we present this. So I just want to highlight a couple of areas here. Rochelle, if you're on page 2, you'll notice in early child's learning and school readiness, we have an action step about creating an early learning center. The board last spring approved some pods that would enable us to do this, but one of the things we always want to do is when we make large-scale decisions about our students, particularly our youngest and most vulnerable students, we want to make sure we have everything in order before we implement that. So we ended up postponing that for a year so that we could make sure we had everything prepared before we do that step, because we never want to get ahead of ourselves just so we can say, well, we checked it off on the plan. We want to be prepared before we do that. So sometimes there are things like that where we may even step back a little bit. We had planned to have that completed starting next year. In this particular case, that's going to be another year because we want more time to make sure we do that right, because that's a big change for our students. Michelle, if you'll go to page 4, you'll notice several things on this particular page that have been implemented in this year, including the relocation of the alternative school program to the Innovation Campus. That was completed over the summer, and again, thanks to the board allowing us to reuse an existing pod that had been used for BASA Overflow before BASA 2 came online. That has gone very successfully. They have integrated into that campus. I know there was a lot of concerns about that, but it has been very successful, and I think Dr. Welch would echo that. So we're very happy there on that campus. That was completed in this year. Michelle, if you'll go to page 7. One of the things, several things on here at the last meeting was we had talked a lot about family engagement and some of those items, and I know you've seen and many of you had a chance to go to the Boulder Together series that Dr. Moten's team has been leading, which has been extremely successful. It's really well put together. We would like to see more parents there, but the parents that have been coming have been getting tremendous content. So that was an area the board had asked about in a previous update on this, and a lot of work has been done by the teaching and learning staff to make that successful. Unfortunately, we've had to cancel a few due to September 4th weather, things like that, but it's been very successful for those who've attended. Last thing I'll show on page 10 is we then, to try to give you a sense of where we are with the overall implementation of the plan. Again, as you move forward in years of the plan, you want more and more of your steps to be fully implemented. The goal would be to have everything either implemented or abandoned by the time you get to year 5, because although there can sometimes be things that for various reasons don't get completed, and that's okay, but the goal would be to have as much of this implemented by year 5 so that you can be prepared to write your next plan. So what you can see is in each of the strategic goal areas, you can actually see what percentage of various items have been marked as either completed or ongoing, meaning they've been fully implemented and are being maintained, or they've been fully implemented in that year. And we are above 50% in every single area. Many were at 100 or right at 100. So we still have a little bit of work to do in that last year of the plan to implement those last steps. We had our cabinet members working with their teams this month to say, we need to have a plan for each of these to get that implemented by year 5, or else we need to reconsider whether we need that in the plan at all. So they've been doing that work, a lot more to come on that, but that is where we're at with the plan as we approach our last year, which segues into our next plan. what we have already talked to. Normally, when you do these plans, one of the things that helps is to bring an outside organization who has experience in leading strategic planning to facilitate that process for us. We have done that for our previous 2 iterations of the strategic plan, and we plan to do that again. We're trying to look at different groups that do that. I had a conversation with one of them last week while we were all at home from the snow, and they laid out their plan. We will have another conversation next week with another group, and then we will come to Dr. LaDuff with a recommendation. He'll make the ultimate decision, and we'll start planning for next year. That can be a 4 to 6 month process. The board will be involved with that process along with the rest of the community, particularly in the visioning stages, because typically the way you write a strategic plan is you always start with both your mission and vision, but also the community's shared vision of where they want the school system to go in the subsequent 5 years. So that will be an ongoing process that we would like to have wrapped up by June of 2026, so that when the 2026-2027 school year starts, we can have a plan that we're proud of and that we have consensus around, that we can then use to push Barrow County even further into the future. So that's an update on where we are with strategic planning. I will be happy to answer any questions the board has.
Dr. Thompson, I don't have any questions, but tremendous comment for you. This was a lot of work, and so I can certainly appreciate the prior board and the community as well as the staff involvement in this. And I absolutely would like to say, along with the board, I believe, I look forward to being part of this next strategic planning.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Kind of exciting. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Any other questions I can answer about the strategic plan? All right, so we'll segue to the third item of information. So when the tragedy of September 4th happened, the Barrow County Community Foundation, which was already an existing organization who does a lot for the school system. If you're not familiar with the Community Foundation, they were one of the driving forces along partnering with the school system on Barrow Legacy Park in downtown Winder that we all enjoy and has been a great success in the community. And they have also been instrumental for years in providing scholarships to Barrow County seniors for a number of endowed scholarships for members of the community. When September 4th happened, the Community Foundation began the Barrow Recovery Fund, which was a way for those with fiscal resources to help aid in the broader recovery efforts in the community. They took in a considerable amount of donations that came in, small board donations from just folks in the community or nationwide, all the way up to very large corporate donations from some organizations that I'm not at liberty to say all of who they are, but you would know their names if I mentioned them to you. These are very large organizations who are very generous in supporting the community. Part of the challenge when you get a lot of money is how do you distribute it fairly. The Community Foundation has spent a lot of time to try to come up with a process to do that is transparent, that involves the entire community. You can read more about it on their website. They have a detailed FAQ. They have various explanations and being transparent about where the money is going. In this case, and if anybody has questions about them, Angela Yarman, who's the director of the Barrow Community Foundation, does a fantastic job and is always happy to talk people through how those funds were collected, how they're used. So the school system, we knew at the very beginning because we would have a lot of needs that we did not budget for due to the crisis of September 4th, and a lot of emergency funds at the federal level take a long time to draw down. They involve applications. They're not eligible for lots of things that we would have needs for. The school and the school system have made significant requests of the Community Foundation, which they have generously funded pretty much everything we have asked for through the first 2 rounds. So what I wanted to do is to walk you through what we have requested from the Community Foundation, what they have given us and how those have been used. I'll show you some fun photos in just a second of some of those things. You get to see Bo the dog, which is the highlight of all of it. But we had needs, and they stepped up and helped us. We're currently in round 3 of grants. We have several more, and with a couple of exceptions that I'll highlight, almost all of these came directly from Appalachia staff. We asked Principal Rayberg to work with their staff to assess what were their needs. So with the exception of a couple that I'll mention, Appalachia staff, this is where those requests have come from overwhelmingly. So the biggest expense, and this was a district request, was we knew we would have needs of mental health clinicians at Appalachia to support students. Dr. Kurtz mentioned something we're doing with employees, but we wanted to make sure we had therapists on site. The Community Foundation has granted us $90,675 to pay for 2 clinicians to be serviced solely at Appalachia for the remainder of this school year. And then the grant that Dr. Kurtz mentioned will be able to pick up subsequent years if the Community Foundation funds run out, which we expect they will at a certain point. Those positions are currently being interviewed for as we speak, and we are hoping those folks will be starting in the next few weeks. They are being provided through a partnership with Advantage Behavioral Health, and we're very appreciative of their partnership. So $90,675 went towards that. The second highest grant that we got was for making Appalachia sports and extracurriculars whole. For those of you who don't know how high school funding of extracurriculars and clubs and sports work, football pays for pretty much everybody else's weight, along with some fundraisers that are specifically done. But lots of money that comes from football gates supports clubs, other sports all across the year. And in this particular case, Appalachia lost multiple gates due to September 4th. And additionally, many club fundraisers that would have been held were not able to be held, and those can't be replicated typically. So we calculated up based on prior years what those gates earned, what those fundraisers earned, and we requested $47,331.68. That is then given to us. We put them in the accounts they would have gone into anyway to support those clubs and organizations, and it helps make Appalachia's extracurriculars whole, which is important because students, particularly those who are in crisis, need their familiarity of their clubs, their sports, their organizations. This helps them do exactly that. $38,805 went to full-time substitute positions at Appalachia. We recognized because Appalachia staff would have more needs to step away from the classroom, to maybe need a moment from time to time, go to therapy sessions, work with our EAP person down the road. We wanted substitutes that the students would be familiar with, that they would be part of the culture, that they would be embedded, and they would be able to support the school as needed. And that money has gone towards that, and we think that will cover the remainder of this year, or at least contribute greatly towards it. I don't know that that's totally going to cover it, so we may come back with additional requests in that area if that's needed. Bo the dog, we had the luxury of having a lot of therapy animals that were brought into the schools during the days after September 4th, and they were huge hits with the students and the staff and just brightened everybody's day, and they have a powerful therapeutic tool. We were fortunate that an outside organization fundraised over $20,000 for us to pay for a full-time therapy dog for Appalachia High School. That is Bo. If you're wondering why a female dog is named Bo, that is because Bo was originally trained to go to Michigan State University, where they have what's called Beaumont Tower, which is a very prominent place on their campus. And then at the last minute, they decided they did not want Bo, and so we took Bo. But Bo had already had a name she'd been trained on, so that's why she's Bo. But we love Bo. Bo is great. If you haven't had a chance to meet her, you should. So the money to raise Bo, which, by the way, the training those dogs get is multiple months and it's extensive, costs around $20,000. That was all privately raised, and we appreciate the folks who did that. But there were still expenses that were incurred over the years of having the dog, including food, some vet bills. We had a lot of things donated, but when we looked at what was donated to cover Bo for 4 years, which is the typical, not lifespan, but that's the typical useful span of a therapy dog, we recognized we needed some funds to be used to support Bo. I mean, literally to the point of to buy Bo squeaky toys, which is a very fun item, and we have to itemize all that and have internal controls on it. But the foundation gave us $9,500 to support Bo over the next 4 years, which we're very happy about. We have in the counseling waiting area, they wanted to put some, because we have a higher number of students seeking counseling, they wanted more comfortable furniture to be able to accommodate those students so they weren't having to stand or use the hard chairs. So $7,862 for that. $7,521 for science classroom modifications. This one takes a little unpacking, so let me explain it. We moved a lot of students around into classrooms so that they weren't in the exact same environment they were in on September 4th, particularly those in the closest proximity to the shooting. And additionally, we lost 12 classrooms, and so those had to be moved. But the one thing you cannot move is the science lab, because those have specialized equipment, those have specialized tools that are in there. You cannot just move a science lab. And we had 2 science labs that were located extremely close to the shooting. They are literally as close as you can get without being on the closed portion of the wing. And in this case, because we had students that are right back in those science classes where they had been locked down, where they had been hearing the shots, there was a lot of students struggling with that. So we wanted to modify that physical environment a bit, put some new furniture in, change the configuration around, change some of the structure of those rooms a bit. And so that $7,521 allows us to do that, to just make those environments look a little different for the students that are in those classes. We did ask for expenses for a funeral for one of the Appalachia deceased teachers. The funeral expenses were largely covered through private donations and through our insurance policy, but there were some specific aspect of travel for some extended family that could not be covered through those, and the foundation was good enough to support that family in paying for that. And then lastly, and this is a strange one, but it'll make sense when I explain it, is we have a weight room at Appalachia, and one of the things that people remarked on September 4th was gunshots don't sound like gunshots when they're indoors. They sound very different. And what was happening to a lot of our students and staff was, as students in the weight room dropped plates, as they dropped bars, the sound was extremely reminiscent of a gunshot on that day. So we asked for $5,670 to pay for rubber bumpers that go around the weights, that when they are dropped, it mutes the sound considerably to where it does not make that sound that was sort of re-traumatizing some of the students and staff. Michelle, if you will open up the photos, and then I'll ask questions on this. We do have a few photos on here. I was only able to get on short term one photo of the furniture, so there is more than just those, but that's an example of some of the furniture that came in for Appalachia's counselor waiting room. You can see there the rubber bumpers that are in place on the weight room. Those are the things that keep them from making the clanking loud noises. Those are in and installed. And then our favorite, there is Bo the dog with her handler, Andy Dean, their graduation coach. And you can see this was around the holiday season, so you can see Bo interacting with multiple students. And then on the actual Facebook post to wish everyone a Merry Christmas, Bo got to be the center of attention. And Bo is extremely spoiled. Bo is also a very good dog, and if you have a chance to go see Bo, you absolutely should. We are extremely appreciative of the Community Foundation's generosity. They do ask us to keep detailed audit accounts of everything they give us. We have to show that every penny they gave us goes towards what we asked for. We will have more requests of them in the future, and we will keep you updated on what the foundation does to support Appalachia High School in the recovery. And I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
I don't have a question, but I too have a comment. And I also want to just thank the Barrow Community Foundation for this, especially in the detailed. I know there's been a lot of confusion in the community, but the impact that they have had on Appalachia. But I also want to thank you and your staff here at the PDC, all of you who have had a part, the late nights, the weekends, and being able to quickly pivot and make the changes that needed to be done. And as well as the teachers and staff at Appalachia who had to change classrooms sometimes 3 times or move around the furniture again to make these things happen and pivot with the needs of the students. So I just want to say a big thank you for all of that.
Thank you.
I have a question. So I'm looking at the funds for the mental health therapists, and you're still in the process of filling those
Yes, ma'am.
positions, is that correct?
That's correct.
As it's getting later into the school year, are you looking at possibly providing services for students during the summer break?
That would be something I think we would definitely look at, and that's actually going back to an item that Dr. Kurtz mentioned. That's the kind of work we need a recovery coordinator for. One of the things that, and I'll mention this when we get into the enhancement survey results, but we have a lot of folks at Appalachia in terms of their administration, their support staff, but also our support staff up here at the central office who have been working double and triple duty, doing their normal jobs and doing the work of trying to deal with an incident like this. And so those are excellent questions that we need answers to, and that's partially why we recognize we needed somebody else to lead that, because it's just not fair to ask those folks to do what was already a demanding full-time job and then figure out all that comes with that. And that includes Ms. Rayberg and her staff. That includes also Dr. Lowe and her staff, Ms. Hope, Karen Hope's, Karen Hope, her staff. They do a great job. And so we want to make sure that they are getting supported. So my assumption would be that is something that's going to have to be strongly considered because those issues don't go away over the summer, and the transition back into school after the summer is going to be particularly difficult for many of those students. So you want to have resources available to them.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, then I'm going to move on to the last section of our items of information. Michelle, if you will open up the, I believe it shows the CERT tuning results survey. Yeah, there we go. So back in September, we walked through this sort of process by which we would go to consider safety enhancements post-September 4th. We began that with our school governance teams. We're going to talk about charter on the action item, but as a reminder, we are a charter district, which means we have shared governance. And I'll talk in a bit about why that's so important, but it means that the district can't unilaterally take action from the board area in many areas of school functioning. We have to engage the full community through the school governance teams. They're made up of the principal of the school, but also teachers, community members, parents, students in the case of high school. They serve 3-year terms, and they take part in the active operation of the school in terms of leading aspects of governance. And it really is under charter shared governance, and we'll talk in a little bit about why that's so critical. So one of the things we asked them to do was to be the first view of looking at what we might do from a safety enhancement perspective. We wanted that to be kind of standardized. We didn't just want to throw that out and say, y'all tell us what you think. So we utilized what's called a tuning protocol, which is a very specific protocol designed to get feedback on issues that may not have a consensus, where there may be differences of opinion. And it's designed not to get around like we decided to do this or that, but to just give everyone an opportunity to consider every aspect of a problem, work through it, give their own feedback, and rather than say the group's decided this, it's just what's the general tenor of the feedback. So we had all of our school governance teams. We also had our Teachers of the Year and our Teacher Advisory Council go through this, as well as our SROs. Went through various versions of this. And what we asked them to do was to consider a host of different potential enhancements for security we would look at, and just to give us feedback. And this was feedback that I classified, and I'll grant there's some subjectivity to this, but I tried to classify it on 3 sort of dimensions. If the feedback was overwhelmingly positive, we called that warm feedback. That means there may not be unanimity, but the vast majority of the people on the SGTs felt that was an area they were very warm to. There may be those items that when we talked through, almost everyone was against it, thought it was not a great idea. We classified those as cool, and then mixed would mean there was not a consensus. There were people on both sides of that issue. And the goal was not to come up with a decision, it was to just say, what do you think about this? Because what that enabled us to do was take the feedback from school governance teams and craft a broader survey that would go out to the community to enable us to get the full feedback of the community on this. So what you can see is, for each of our school governance teams and the TAC-TOTI group, what their views were on different safety enhancements. We brought them from weapons detection systems, backpack policies, increased mental health supports, additional security personnel, better record transfer between district, staff carrying weapons, and then student ID badges. Based on what we got there, and you can see the overall results, but what I would say is we did 2 things based on this. One is we took out for the survey better record transfer between districts, and part of the reason is we don't control that a lot. That's another district thing, but what I can tell you is our legislators and GMA are looking very, very closely at this issue, and we expect there will be some legislative fixes on this side, and they're being good enough to consult with us on those, and so we appreciate them on that. So we think that's something that overwhelmingly SGTs were very warm about, but that's not something we can promise them. So, but we did get good feedback for our elected officials that this is an area that they felt was really important. Staff carrying weapons got an overwhelmingly cool response, and that is also governed by a board policy that we already have in place. And so because that would require a board policy fix, and because the overall tenor of that was just very negative, we took that particular one out of the survey, whereas everything else we included in the overall survey results. So Rochelle, if you will open up the survey PowerPoint now. And all these results are available on our eBoard system now, so you can, the public can see those after they're available now. So the first thing you can see is an example of sort of, this is an age where most people take a survey, they take it on a phone. And so that was kind of what it looked like on their phone. And if you go to the next slide, Rochelle, you can see the structure of the items that were asked about. So in this case, We gained some basic demographic information about the person responding to the survey, and then we asked them about a total of 5 different potential security feedback options, and just asked what their opinion were about Barrow County considering adding those into the layers of safety at our schools. And you can see how we sort of categorize that under the top one in terms of how the response options looked. So we pushed this heavily on all of our communications channels. What you can see there is we had this live on our, this was the front and center on our website for the entire 2 weeks it was open, along with the videos that we created to kind of walk them through each of the potential enhancements. This got 9,220 page views between December 2nd and 14th, which is pretty high. So there was a lot of web traffic to that particular area. We also pushed that out broadly into the community. We had multiple social media posts that had a 7,000 view reach that went out December 3rd, 9th, and 12th to try to get as many people to take the survey as possible. We also sent that out on our December 4th board briefs. We had 1 parent link and 2 remind messages that were sent directly to parents of all Barrow County students asking them to take the survey. So we really pushed this hard to get as many folks to take it as possible. Now, the total group, now, we didn't restrict it just people we directly sent it to. We were basically saying if you're a member of the community and you get the survey, we'd like you to take it. But we only directly sent this to parents and guardians, and anybody else that could get it, they could get through social media, through our website. We didn't try to hide the survey link. In this particular case, we had 22,000 individuals that we directly sent the survey to via their email through Parent Link, or Remind would be on their phone, but through Parent Link we sent 22,000. We got a total response rate of 4,289, which is 19.4% of who we sent that to, give or take. That's not as high as we would have liked it, frankly, but it is within the acceptable range for a survey of this type. Typically, what you would like to get is around a 30% response rate. That's, in a professional setting, what you would want to get on a survey of this type. We didn't quite get that. You can see the breakdown of the total number between parents and guardians, students, and staff. We did have a handful, a little over 100, that didn't fall into those 3 groups. When I read who those were, it was all over the map, from concerned community member, I live in another district, I live in another state. We included those in the results until we broke them out by group, in which case we didn't include them in one of the big 3 groups. And then you can see for those that were tied to a school, would be they a staff or a student, you can see the breakdown of what we received. So we got a pretty good representation across all of our schools. As you can see, obviously, the high schools had the highest response rates because they're the most affected, obviously, but also they have the most staff in this case, and they have the most students. So they're going to get a higher return rate. So now I'm going to walk through the actual results. So these are done in order of the highest rates of agreement on the survey. And I'm going to try to, as we do this, update where we kind of are with each of these currently, so the board can understand what may come next. The first one was security personnel enhancements. This had an overall 89.2% of respondents either strongly agreed or moderately agreed they wanted to see enhancements in this. This has been a little bit of a 2-step forward, 1 step back. The board and the county came together in the fall and added 8 SRO positions that enabled us to have a SRO at every school, have multiple SROs at high school. We're very proud of that. The challenge is hiring them. So we had 8 open positions. As of today, we have hired 2, the sheriff more specifically, has hired 2 of those and has 1 more hire that is currently in training. We are concerned that multiple months in, we're not getting more applicants for this, so we are in dialogue with Sheriff Smith about things we might do to sort of change the parameters of the job in terms of several key components to see if we can get that up, because ultimately we need to get those positions filled. That is critical for safety, for our school culture, and it's what our community overwhelmingly wanted, and that was one of the first things the board acted on. Getting those hired is a challenge, and Sheriff Smith is working on that as we speak, but as it currently stands, we have 3 hires out of the 8. All right. Second highest level of agreement was with mental health enhancements. As I said, we have been very lucky in that Barrow County, prior to September 4th, had invested in mental health at a rate through our AWARE grant and through just good governance. that a lot of districts had. We were better equipped to handle this than typical school districts would have been who underwent this. But at the same time, this is a challenge of scale, and so we recognize you need to do things to enhance that. So you can see overall 84.7% of respondents either strongly agreed or moderately agreed with mental health enhancements. In this particular case, remember, we're hiring 2 full-time clinicians and the EAP position to support staff. Those interviews are currently ongoing, and we hope to have those positions filled very soon. We're hopeful the recovery coordinator will be able to help us assess where we need to go next, because obviously this is a high priority for the community. We think the recovery coordinator is going to be positioned to do the type of needs assessment that our folks frankly don't have the time to do because they're trying to manage all of this as it happens while they're trying to do their job. So we're hopeful this person will lead us in what our next steps are going to be in terms of mental health support for students. The third was student ID badges. This is essentially like the issue of how do you identify students in there, giving access control in the building, having, student ID with photos on there. You can see 70.1% strongly agree or moderately agree on this one. You start getting into some disagreements here, and when we break this out by students, staff, and parents, you'll see some interesting patterns in a second, but overall this one was the third highest in terms of overall agreement. Weapons detection systems came in at 68.1% of those respondents said they strongly or moderately agreed with adding weapons detection systems to Barrow County schools. You can see there was about 22% disagree, 9% unsure. Obviously, Dr. Bowen gave the update on this one just a minute ago. The next logical step, obviously, is we had to get our high schools secured in terms of metal detectors, and he undersold it on some level. The work that the schools have to do to get this right is considerable, and it takes multiple weeks to get where they need to get. You got to train the students, got to train the staff. Like, it takes a while. The next thing we would look at is whether we want to expand that to other levels. The board was generous enough to give us funding resources that we think we might be able to do that, and that's something we would bring back to you when we feel like we're in a position to do that. Our first priority right now is to get the high schools secured and to get them trained. But obviously, there may be more in this area, but that was 68.1% of respondents approved of that. And the final one was bag policies. This is a bit of a hodgepodge because there's actually quite a few policies in here. There's no bags at all, clear bags, restricting some bags, et cetera. This came out at 54.7% agree, but you also see there was a large portion, 36%, who disagree with these policies. This is something we are still looking at. I will tell you, though, every bag that is brought into our high schools is scanned through the weapons detection systems. One of the things we had to do on those first few days was to train students about how to carry their bags through there. The distance between the pillars is not substantial, which means the simplest way to do it is to actually hold it in front of you as you walk through. And if you've been to a high school, one of the things you know is students bring a lot of bags. So that took a challenge to do that. But every bag that comes into our high schools is currently being run through a weapons detection system. The only things we pass around the actual weapons detection system is the Chromebooks or laptops. Everything else gets scanned to see if there are weapons contained in there. So that's 54.7%. Then what we did was we took all of those to kind of give you a sense of scale. So what you can see is between those 5, you can see generally the rate of agreement across each of those, and then you can see the rate of disagreement as well. So you can see that overwhelmingly our community at a majority level was in favor of considering all of these things, but they certainly had more support for some than others. And then finally, the thing you can see broken out is you can see this across the 3 broad groups of staff, parents, and students. And there's some interesting patterns that come out with this. Security personnel had pretty broad agreement across all 3 groups, mental health as well. Student IDs, interestingly, the staff are the least interested in these, and I think that's because there are some logistical challenges that come up with that. Parents a little less, a little more enthusiastic. Students actually were the highest, which I would not have expected if you had asked me to predict this prior to the survey coming out. Detection systems, the highest agreement by far was parents. A little bit lower on the staff side and kind of in between on student side, but still 65% of our students were comfortable in having weapons detection systems in their building. So that is notable. Bag policies, you see there is a sort of, the highest was staff at about 63%. Students were overwhelmingly opposed to clear backpacks or bag policies, only about 30.7% there. So what we've walked you through are the overall results, and I've tried to, as I've hit each item, talk about what the logical next steps are in each of those areas. So in the case of mental health, that's going to be the recovery coordinator helping us to think through how we're going to deploy those mental health resources that we're going to have through the community foundation and grants. For security personnel, it's going to be helping the sheriff work to get SROs hired to get in the buildings. For weapons detection systems, it's considering scaling that to other levels of the school system. For bag policies, it's deciding if that's something we think will work or if that falls under the weapons detection systems that we already have. And then student ID badges, how that would work, what the vendors are, things like that. So those are the logical next steps we're going to be considering. Obviously, the biggest piece of addition was what the board did at our last called work meeting, which was to add the weapons detection system, open gate at our high schools and potentially other levels. So those are the results of the survey. I will be happy to answer any questions from the board. Yes, Ms. Bradford.
Hi, I have a couple. The SROs, which is really important. Has the sheriff's department said why he doesn't feel he's getting, we're splitting the cost, I think that's what we're doing, right? We pay part of the SRO, and does the sheriff's, okay.
That is correct.
Are we offering a really competitive pay, to get people in? I think that, is that something that he's considering maybe offering more money to get people on board? I mean, we definitely need them.
I think those are the things that we're having conversations about. But ultimately, Sheriff Smith knows the market for law enforcement officers better than we do, and he certainly knows what's going to move his street officers to be interested in a role like that. So we're relying on him a lot to advise us on things that the board could take action on potentially, or that the county could take action on to assist with that, because obviously it's great to have the money approved, but if you can't fill the positions, you're not actually doing that much of note. I will also point out, we're a little picky about our SROs. We don't want just any law enforcement officer in there. We want people who are motivated to work with students every day while keeping our schools safe, which means it's a challenge to find those kind of folks, which means we have to think about things like the incentives and the pay and things like that. But that's something we rely with Sheriff Smith to advise us on what's going to move the needle, and we will certainly work with the board on what is necessary to get that done.
The other thing is, how are the kids reacting to the metal detector so far? They seem to be, okay with it?
I think so. I mean, that's a question that, it's like anything else. You're talking about 4,700 students that are being scanned every day. You're going to get a gamut of opinions, but I think overall, the days I've observed, just talking to principals, talking to Dr. Bowen and others who have been out watching every day, it's like anything else. People get used to it. It becomes part of the normal operations. And, again, the challenge with something like this is not the initial phases, because I think everybody understands the need. Everybody's motivated to make it work. It becomes when you have to maintain it over many, many years, and making sure that you don't have that vigilance slip, that you keep everything, highly running in order. That's really what the challenge of a program like this is how do you maintain it effectively? Because in the early stages, once you get over the initial challenges of just figuring out logistically how to do it, people are motivated to make it work. But that may not be true in 6 months, a year, 2 years, and that's the work that staff have to do, is to keep that at a high quality of scanning and precision every day, because that's what makes them work, is that commitment to doing it right.
Ms. Bradford, I'd just like to add, as we talk with our colleagues across the state regarding the recruitment of SROs and police officers, it's not necessarily a Barrow County problem. We're seeing this problem across the state and the nation in terms of recruiting qualified officers, particularly officers that are going to be assigned to work in schools.
And I'm going to also add a comment too, just to acknowledge, after our event, there were a lot of districts around us that didn't have SROs at every school. We had SROs at almost every school, if not shared campuses, which was far above and beyond what a lot of districts do. So when we already were prepared in that regard, adding on 8 others when districts around us, our neighboring districts, were also saying we need to catch up. And we're also hiring at the same time to try to get SROs at their campuses. Going to also put out that we have a unique relationship where we have a sheriff who before this fought and has really advocated to split or heavily contribute to our SROs to make sure our students are safe. And so I just want to publicly I'll do it until I'm blue in the face. Thank our sheriff and the commissioners who support funding our SROs and partnering with us in that, because this is unique. It should be a standard that other communities follow, and I'm grateful for that community partnership.
Absolutely. Any other questions on the survey results? They're published. Anyone can see those, and we'll use those as a springboard to, as Dr. LaDuff has said many times, with safety, it's never about the last step, it's about the next step, to figure out what our next steps are. And we tried to kind of outline what that looks like, and obviously the board took the biggest step at our meeting earlier this month, and so it's now refining a lot of those processes. All right, I only have one more item, and I promise I'm done. That is an action item. We mentioned earlier the strategic planning. Barrow County is a charter district. For those of you who are not familiar with what that means, that enables us to have broad flexibility from the vast majority of state laws and state board rules as pertains to education in terms of everything from class time, seat time, qualifications for staff, things of that nature that give us tremendous flexibility to be innovative and to try to solve problems and not to be hamstrung by bureaucracy. We can't waive everything. There are certain things related to assessment and accountability, student disability, obviously, which we would not want to waive even if we could, but we can't. And then also financial aspects of governance we're not allowed to actually waive. But beyond that, we have very strong flexibility to not be hamstrung by laws that may not have been intended to solve a problem that we now have to solve. And so it gives us a lot of flexibility to do that. We became a charter district in 2010. Our first charter was a 5-year. It expired in 2016. We were lucky enough to go write a plan when they were giving 10-year charters. They don't give those anymore. They decided that was a bad idea at the state level. So you can't get a charter 10 years anymore, but we got a 10-year. That was due to expire June 30th of 2026. And writing a new charter is a daunting task. It is about like writing a strategic plan. It is very challenging. You have to get a lot of people together. I was not particularly looking forward to this task, but it was necessary because we need to remain a charter to have that flexibility to solve problems. When in discussions with the state flexibility as well as the Charter System Foundation, which we are a member of, it was brought up to us that they really prefer you have your new strategic plan written before you do your charter, because ideally you don't want those two things to be going in different directions. We were very fortunate that when we wrote our most recent strategic plan in 2021, it was very similar to what we wrote in the charter in 2016. That did not have to work out that way. That could have been very different. And so this, the idea is if you do your strategic plan first, you can base your charter reapplication around your strategic plan. So in discussions with them, they felt due to the fact that we had our strategic plan being written next school year, and that obviously the state board has been extremely generous to us post-September 4th, recognizing that our resources are heavily strained. We were strongly encouraged to submit a resolution from the board asking for an additional 1 year on the charter before we would have to reapply. And we were basically told that this was, I don't want to say it's a done deal, but everyone on the state board agreed this was a good idea. And so in this case, what you have before you is both a resolution that the board would need to sign and vote on, as well as the language of an amendment that would be going into our charter. You would be signing and voting on these at the next board meeting. We would then take that to the state board level. The state board would vote on that at some point in the late winter, early spring. And what that would enable us to do is to have another year as a charter district, get our strategic plan done, then write a charter renewal that will align itself with the strategic plan. It gives us time to prepare for this, but also it helps us to put the strategic plan first, which is really what you want when you think about the sequence between those two things. The charter is how you achieve your goals. The goals actually come from the strategic plan. So we wanted to do that. So I'll be happy to answer any questions, but we are recommending, superintendent recommends the board approve the resolution and amendment to the charter at the next board meeting so that the state board will extend us for 1 more year on our charter. Any questions you have?
All right. Thank you, Dr.
Done, thank you.
Thank you.
Move to consent? All right, at this time, we will move on into executive session to discuss or deliberate upon the appointment, employment, compensation, hiring, disciplinary action, or dismissal, or periodic evaluation or rating of a public officer or employee, or to interview applicants for the position of superintendent. So could I have a motion to go into executive session?
So moved. Second.
Ms. Carey, Dr. Carey?
And then me, yeah, Kayla.
And Ms. Hendricks? All right, all in favor?
Yes.
Yeah. All right, we will return.
Hey, my name is Ellen Petrie. I'm the School and Community Relations Specialist for the Bexar County School System. I had the pleasure of working with 31 churches, 4 civic clubs, and about 10 or 12 businesses for our backpack drive this year. We are just thrilled with the outpouring of love for our children and for the great school year they're going to have. We had a huge host of volunteers here, and everyone coming together in this community to help support our children.
We are having so much fun out here today giving away these backpacks, and honestly, we could not do any of this without our amazing volunteers. So we have almost 50 people here, kids, adults, senior adults, all helping us give these backpacks to our community, and so it is honestly the most incredible morning.
Yes, it's amazing. And one great thing is that we partner with all Barrow County schools.
Yes.
So it's been so cool for me to see so many families I know through Auburn Elementary, West Side, and every other school. It's just amazing, and we're having a great day.
Hi, I'm Faye Spalding. I'm a lieutenant with the Barrow County Sheriff's Office, and I'm here this year for the Back to School Bash. I've been doing it many years now. We have a large amount of volunteers from schools, communities, families. They all come together for one purpose, and that's to serve the students of Barrow County. And it's an awesome event. It takes a lot of work, a lot of time, but at the end it's worth it when we can put those book bags in the car and wish them a very good day and to have a happy and safe school year.
I love the opportunity to see families and be able to give to them resources, and the book bags make them smile, and so it's an opportunity as a social worker for me to actually do something for them, as opposed to sometimes when I meet with families it's not always a positive exchange. And so this is a positive exchange. It's a great way to start off the year on a fresh foot and an opportunity to just sort of give back to the community and to see them excited about a fresh new school year.
So the logistics for something like this is crazy. There's a lot of people, a lot of volunteers, and that's honestly the only way it works, is having people that are here to serve and to give in their time, their talent. And I mean, there's a ton of people here volunteering, and that's what it takes. It takes just a village to do this, to pull this off, and so we're so thankful for all our volunteers.
And we think we did over 200 bags.
Yes.
At least 200 bags that we were able to put together beyond that giant pile you've probably already seen. It was a great experience because I love seeing both people in wheelchairs and kids.
And small children,
who
yes.
could absolutely help fill all those backpacks. And they felt like they were helping and they were a part of the solution, which is awesome.
And they're very fulfilling and very united together.
Absolutely.
Good job.
Thank
again.
you, and good job to you. Thanks.
Hi, I am Lynn Tillman. You can refer to me as the Tillmanator. That's what I've been being called since 1989 when the Terminator movies were popular. And I teach music at County Line Elementary School. And this is my room. I have all kinds of things that I have acquired through the fundraising website called Donors Choose. Got some congas and bongos. And I have this sweet, totally sweet 1970s vintage set of wood blocks. Love those. I have some African djembes. I got some basses. We got a big doghouse bass. That's awesome too. We have, I really don't know what they're called, but I call them flapophones. We got bells. We got tubano drums. I got a xylophone. These are mine personally. Nobody gets to touch those except me. And I got a drum set, which we are rocking on all the time. I first realized that I could potentially be good as a teacher back when I was in middle school. And I played the flute in Gwinnett County, Sweetwater Middle School. And my band director realized that I'd already known my parts, and he asked me to help some of the people, not only in my section, but in other sections, to learn their parts better. So we'd go back in the practice room. I would teach them their parts, and I've always had a way of being able to break it down to its absolute simplest forms that you don't even have to understand music to get what it is, and to teach on a need-to-know basis. This is all you need to know to be able to play this. Kind of like earlier when I was doing the basses, and I said, all you gotta do is press the yellow dot. They don't have to know that that's an E. They don't have to know that it's an E chord. All they have to know is right now, press the yellow dot. When you see my foot step on yellow, you press yellow. The simplest form to get them to have success as quickly as possible. And it was back in middle school that I first realized that I had that in me and that I could get people to learn with down to the simplest thing.
Teachers do amazing things. Stuff. Yeah. Teachers do fun activities.
I want them to know that teachers, we're not perfect. We can come in and we think, I've got a plan, I'm doing good, I am gonna teach. And then you come in here and you totally blow it. And sometimes you just blow it and the kids laugh at you and then we move on and you fix it. And now I'm gonna fix it. Yeah. Okay, all right, so I was doing the,
I like playing with toys. I like my teacher. I'm over the Newburgh pre-K. Pre-K is out of this world.
Project Search is a very unique transition program, different from anything we have in Barrow County. It started at Cincinnati Children's Hospital in Ohio in the mid-1990s, and now there are 610 sites in 47 states and 10 countries, including right here in Barrow County. To participate in Project Search, a student has to be a Barrow County student between the ages of 18 and 22, with barriers to employment such as intellectual or developmental disabilities. They have to be finished with their high school graduation requirements and willing to defer graduation until the end of their Project Search year. It's during that year that they come to the Winder Housing Authority here at the Wimberley Center, and they participate in 3 rotations that last anywhere from 10 to 12 weeks. They have a manager and a mentor that they report to and work alongside, along with skills training with our partners, and it's just a really unique program because the end goal is part-time or full-time employment for the interns.
Here at the Wimberley Center, the Project Search students are learning a variety of different skills. They're learning data entry, they're learning accounts payable, payroll, records retention, they're learning how to shred, environmental services,
restaurant sanitation, doing a lot of washing dishes and helping clean floors. There's a good aspect of prep, some general prep cook.
I do dishes, I do prep. It teaches you, if you want to walk out of the kitchen, how to do things correctly.
I'm teaching them how to answer the phone, how to take messages, how to respond to, interact with people coming into the facility.
Well, my first internship was in the front office, like in the receptionist area, and I learned how to copy papers, scan stuff into the computer, answer the phone, and mail out letters.
We're cutting grass, we're harvesting crops, we're doing weeding, we're doing some irrigation work, digging, pretty much anything when it comes to working on the farm, we try and tackle it.
Well, my first internship, I learned how to cut grass, which I never learned how to do that.
The skills that the interns are learning through my department are their maintenance skills. They're learning lawn care skills. We're doing janitorial skills.
We multitask, repo
My task is to go along beside them and make sure that they have a good understanding of what the job is that they are being asked to do, and for me to make sure that they are able to do it, and then I kind of back away and let them do their thing.
I learned how to use a knife better in culinary, and then I learned how to use a drill, like putting pressure on it is a good way to use a drill like that.
They learn how to appropriately interact in a real workplace. It's not simulated in a classroom, it is an actual place of business.
We go over important topics like interview preparation, resumes, how to keep a job searching, how to deal with conflict resolution, work with different bosses, just a lot of different topics to prepare them for the workplace.
A lot of the things that our employees are doing, a lot of repetitive tasks and things of that nature are things that we are able to have the Project Search students handle, and they do it quite well. And so it's just a cool collaboration, and you have a lot of teamwork and synergy. So I love it. I've enjoyed having them.
They bring an excitement to general tasks that we kind of take as mundane tasks, but they bring an excitement to that, and it really invigorates us to get excited about some of the things that we just take for granted.
Project Search has been an amazing benefit for all 4 of our interns this year. Without it, I'm not sure that they would have even known what they were capable of doing.
We get to both learn things, we get to get some work done and have a good time doing it.
What I like about it is because it keeps me moving and keeps me busy, and it really helps me how to be able to do it, get a job.
Well, I think Project Search benefits the community because it is opening up an opportunity for students that have some type of a learning disability to be employed.
We don't want these kids leaving our school system at age 22 and not having a clear direction, not having somewhere to go and feel needed and feel productive and really demonstrate what their true abilities are.
It's been very much a learning experience, I think, on both ends, and very enjoyable. They seem to always have a good attitude and to show up ready to work.
It's very educational for the interns and for us because we learn how to teach them.
It's teaching everybody something. The staff plus the interns. Everybody's learning, plus we're getting, once they get acclimated to what we're doing, they're able to assist and help, which speeds things along. It benefits the company as a whole.
You get to work with new people, and you get to learn new things and stuff.
I believe it offers them just some real world experience through these internships. I've just really been honored to be part of it.
Project Search benefits the community by letting people from the community interact with the Project Search students. So people that may have had some stigma against people with disabilities get to meet these kids and realize they're just like anybody else, and get to learn from that experience.
The Project Search students have grown quite significantly just in the short time that they've been here. They seem to be very happy to be here.
I've just been constantly blown away, and I find myself bragging to my family and friends about the skills and the abilities that the interns have gained throughout this course of the school year.
I think that their courage has grown, their determination to do things has grown. I just feel like that they're more confident in themselves now that they're working with us.
So I've seen the project interns grow during my time with me by just really learning that they can do things that they didn't think they could do before, and doing some tasks that they haven't done before and really enjoying it.
I love being able to see what the interns are going to be doing and to be able to see how accomplished they are at each one of their tasks. I had no idea that they were all capable of so much.
They have a great attitude, they are very motivated, and I've just been impressed with them.
Project Search students have really changed the culture by making it a happier workplace. And that not only includes the Winder Housing Authority, but all of our partners under roof. Yeah, it's made it a happier place to be.
I would say it's brought everybody closer together. They love the environment of working with the interns. It kind of brings happiness to the whole group as a whole here in the Wimberley Center, working with them.
I can't imagine having our Project Search program anywhere else because of the welcoming impact the Winder Housing Authority staff has had on us.
I enjoy being here every day and learning new skills, and it's a perfect way to learn what a job world will look like in the future.
I feel good about working here because you get to learn new experience and know that it's not the same job over and over again. You get to know different stuff and how to do that, different jobs.
It's really gotten me someplace that I've really enjoyed.
I believe these Project Search participants have a great chance to perform and not only just get a job, but to excel.
And we need for the community to get behind us and really give these kids the opportunity that they deserve. The community's going to end up with some pretty fantastic employees.
I just think it's a great opportunity for these interns. It's something that they'll never forget, and we'll never forget here either.
Even if moving forward we are not the direct mentors, I still would love to have some sort of involvement with Project Search. It's meant a lot to us.
It's just an awesome opportunity to pass something along to somebody who might never get the opportunity to do that, and we're giving them that opportunity. So I think it's a great thing.
Their dreams of the future has changed. They have realized that they can do what they dream to do, and there's resources for them to be able to do it.
I like Project Search because it's taught me a lot more than any other place that I've been in.
I would definitely do Project Search again.
I love Project Search.
Got some friends here, and I'm here to let you know that you are a Rich Scholar.
Hello, Mom. What's up, lady? I won the Reach Scholarship. Huh? I won the Reach Scholarship. You won now? I won the Reach Scholarship. Thank you. Thank you.
We want to tell you, here to congratulate you. You are the Reach Scholar winner for Heyman Morris. Well done. We're here to let you know that you are the Reach Scholarship winner.
She just asked me that coming down the hall. Hey. Guess what? What? I won the scholarship. Oh, you did? Mm-hmm. Oh my God, that's good.
Yeah, you'd be right. You are the Russell Middle School Reach Scholar winner.
I'm the Russell Reach Scholar. Oh, congratulations. I'm so proud of you.
Let you know you are this year's Reach Scholar. Congratulations.
Mom. Yes? You know how I had the Reach Scholarship, right? Yes. I got in.
Yes! Got the scholarship.
This is where traditions begin and legacies are built.
At Barrow Arts and Sciences Academy, we're sparking innovations of tomorrow by empowering our students today. Our academic course offerings are rigorous to prepare students for life beyond high school. And we offer a variety of art programs that encourage students to express themselves no matter the medium. We are a non-traditional school where students will discover their passion, prepare for their future, and explore the intersection where the arts and sciences complement one another. This is BASA, and we are the Blazers.
My name is Stephen Casey, and I'm a senior here at Barrow Arts and Sciences Academy. How did I get my start in sports? I think it's kind of up in the air. But in 7th grade in middle school, I had played 1 year of rec basketball, and to me it just kind of clicked, and I fell in love with the sport there. And I love to be active and just run around and be a little kid. And so after basketball, I had a ton of energy, and my parents used to give me a hard time about it. And they said, hey, why don't you try out for running? And so I ended up doing track also my 7th grade season, which was a lot of fun. I had awesome teammates. And then my 8th grade year, I did cross country for the first time, which was a new experience, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. And then I also did track my 8th grade year, but COVID cut that short, unfortunately. So I think coming to BASA was kind of a shocker to everybody. My 7th grade year, I remember at the time the principal, Dr. Simpson, came into the classrooms and was pitching this new idea for a new high school. And so some of us kids were skeptical and some of us kids didn't know what to expect. But me and my mom had actually come to like the opening night of BASA, and we just really enjoyed it. And I got to meet the principal, and he was super nice. And we were kind of going over classes of what to take. And it was really funny because he looked at me and my mom and he goes, you look like an athlete, how about you take dance and theater class? And that threw me off guard. It was a curveball for sure, but it really helped me. And the thing about sports too is at a traditional high school, it's a lot tougher, I guess, to make teams or to make yourself, stand out. And so coming to BASA, being a smaller knit school, and I guess relating more to my classmates and teammates, made me enjoy sports a lot more. And I think that's what actually helped my growth, was being so close with everyone else. It really allowed me to just be myself and to succeed in anything I did. I think my favorite memory to start out high school was when I took dance class. I actually met my best friend Andrew Wooten in there. We were the only 2 guys. And so the teacher was calling roll and we kind of stared at each other the whole time. We didn't know what to expect. And then we talked to each other and it just clicked for us. And we ended up having 3rd period as well, human geography together, and that was just so much fun. I think some mentors that really left an impact was my freshman year and sophomore year coach, Rob Simpson. He just saw something in all of us and my teammates, and he just told us to really stick to it and to never change ourselves, whether it was a sport or the classroom. And so having that like calm example instead of like a loud coach screaming at you was just kind of calming to have. My AP US history teacher and geography teacher, Dr. Nicole Baker, she was a great teacher. She was very personable, and she just made the class enjoyable because she also has kids of her own, and so she kind of understood where we were at with her kids being around the same age as us, but she also wanted us to succeed and be the best versions we could. And more recently, my statistics teacher, Jeffrey Lillian, he actually makes me like math for some reason, which is really weird to say, but he's just shown that experience, I think, makes up for everything. But also, being an adult isn't super easy, but it's a lot of fun when you can relate and just have fun and enjoy what you do, because when you enjoy what you do, it makes life so much better. Right after graduation, I plan on serving a 2-year mission for my church, and I'll be called who knows where, and so that'll be really fun. And then when I come back, I've been accepted into the University of Georgia, so I will attend there, and I do plan on playing for their basketball team if the opportunity presents itself. And the goal would to be play college basketball, but if that doesn't work out, I'll go into the broadcasting field or sports media. This year, I received Best Teammate Award in cross country, which I was super grateful for, just because I know how hard it is, especially when you may not be the quickest or the most loud, but it especially helps just to have that small cheerleader in your corner. And so for my teammates to, I guess, recognize me for that, I think was truly special, because hopefully I did the same thing for them. If I could talk to myself as a freshman, I think I would tell myself to never change, just to stay being myself. Obviously, there's a few things day-to-day basis that you wish you could change, or maybe if, oh, I played this sport instead of this sport, maybe stuff like that. But I don't think, looking back on all 4 years, I don't think I would change anything, and just tell myself to have fun.
Hi, I'm Mary Michael Hahn, and I'm the Community Director at Bethlehem Church, and we have had the privilege of partnering with every single Barrow County school for the past 2 months, serving faculty and staff Lane's Barbecue, provided by Bethlehem Church, with also our amazing volunteers from the church. It has been such a joy to get to be in every school, to see all the faculty and staff and the joy that food can bring to people. And it's been amazing for our volunteers from Bethlehem Church to be in these schools, to see some of their kids, grandkids, family members. I love the partnership that we get to have with Barrow County Schools, because every time I get to do it, I leave grateful.
My name's Jaden Cooper. I'm a senior and I go to Warner Barrow High School. So growing up, I was just always outside. You know, I like to do a lot of fishing. You can tell by my attire. So when I got to high school, I like to choose the classes that I like to do. So I chose agriculture to be one of my pathways. And basically, I'm getting to do exactly what I wanted to do as a kid, so it's pretty fun. So football teaches you a lot of valuable skills like communication, accountability, and basically just trusting your teammates, because in the classroom and in the workforce, you have to work with people that you don't necessarily like half the time, and you just have to deal with it, and you just have to do stuff like that to become successful. A teacher that's made an impression on me the most would have to be Miss McCall. She teaches business here, and she teaches you about credit, which is a really good thing to know in life. Obviously, I just won prom king, so I'm pretty proud of that, and I'm also proud of being an honor grad, because all my hard work's paid off. I'm planning to go to Georgia Southern to play a little football, and also to pursue a career in environmental engineering. Do your work on time, don't show up to class late, hang out with the right crowd, and never procrastinate.
Arts Now is a nonprofit organization that works with teachers to help them integrate arts into their lessons.
It is taking what you already do as a normal teacher, and it's just putting those art elements with it and elevating it and taking it to the next level for kids.
My love for it grows every day. The fact that the students are up and out of their seat and engaged and learning, not just memorizing, but learning about the content and the artist and how it all fits together.
There's so many different things that you could do with it. Maybe doing a little bit of painting in class, or doing like maybe a little skit. You can like actually like come together as a group and do dancing.
We could do more creative stuff and more hands-on stuff.
It really brings out like the creative and the bright side of me.
It has really opened the doors for understanding, and also for the students especially to take that understanding and synthesize it and then communicate it back out, which is well known to be the best way to learn. Especially the way Arts Now presents it just underscores that immensely.
Arts integration is very powerful. You get the kids out of their seat, you get them working collaboratively. I mean, that's what it's all about, is that engagement for those kids.
I know that like whenever like they say that we're going to Arts Now, everybody gets very excited.
It helped me like learn and like how to adapt to new things.
You can actually show a lot more expression, personality.
We get to learn by doing things.
They learn on so much more of a deeper level. They're applying those critical thinking skills.
Being able to use that as a scaffold for teaching and learning just makes all those things more real, and it makes all those skills more communicable, and kids can relate to that better, and really so can adults and teachers.
And it's a way for me to teach them in a different way probably than they've ever been taught before.
The teachers then love it and feed into it, and it's just a cycle that keeps going, and it's powerful.
It is impactful because it allows those students to remember those learning experiences far beyond the 6th grade classroom or the 7th grade classroom.
Student learning, engagement, and retention is heightened at a level that I've never seen before.
They are able to shine through their passion. It really does bring out the best in a student.
And we have seen that over the years with Arts Now. It's just a proven fact.
So the beginning, you see the kids and they're very hesitant about it, but then by the end they were like, can we go again, please?
It helped me learn more, and it helped me focus more.
Arts Now changed my perspective of learning. You can actually do physical things and learn stuff.
I could express myself, and it made me more confident in my answers.
Now I'm more talkative, and I can actually perform things.
I was pretty shy, but now I'm more comfortable standing up and doing dances in theater.
It pushed me out of my comfort zone.
Now I've kind of learned that I can be myself without being judged, I guess.
I think my confidence has grown.
It changed the way I learn because you can go and you can like do stuff with your body and you're not just sitting there writing down on a piece of paper and just having to sit in quietness.
My scores on the grade level tests we take are so much higher because my kids are retaining this information. They learn it so much more on a deeper level.
It brings the fun back to teaching and learning. You're going to learn more from things you're having fun with than you are things you're just having to have to do.
And it's so enlightening as a teacher to see my kids enjoying learning, but also I'm enjoying teaching.
I really think it's unlimited what we can do with this program.
What students are getting can't be replaced.
Students are successful in this way.
And the more we can do to make sure that continues to happen, the better off our students are going to be.
My kids ask me every day, are we doing something for Arts Now today? And they're so excited, and I tell them, yes, we are.
Arts Now is something that should be everywhere.
Hi, my name is Colin Hedges, and I'm a senior at Appalachia High School. I've lived in Winder, Bethlehem, all my life. I'm 18 years old. I have my mom and dad. I have 2 sisters.
Trying to give you a heads up. Thank you.
We will reconvene and approve the personnel report. Superintendent recommends the personnel report as presented. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor? Did you get that, Michelle? That it was Ms. Lord made the motion. Thank you. And second by about 3 people.
Yeah.
4 people. I'll second. Ms. Matters. All right. All in favor? Did we do that?
Yeah.
Yeah, we were all.
All right. Our next, got some dates for our next meetings. The public hearings, 3 of those, our regular board meeting on the 4th, and board training on the 7th. At this time, no more business, we'll adjourn.
Thank you.